The whispers reached Zane Johnson before he even had a chance to set down his serving tray. It wasn't the first time he'd overheard snippets of cruel conversation while working as a server at these high society events, but something about the malicious tone made him pause near a cluster of tuxedo-clad men. Can you believe Tessa Lawson showed up in that dress? Trying so hard to fit in when everyone knows she bought her way into this circle, one man sneered, swirling his champagne. New money, another agreed with a dismissive wave. Her company might be worth billions on paper, but she's still that awkward scholarship girl from the wrong side of the tracks. Zane glanced across the glittering ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, immediately spotting the woman they were discussing. In a sea of predictable black gowns, she stood out in a structured emerald dress that complemented her chestnut hair. She was beautiful, certainly, but what struck Zane was how utterly alone she appeared despite being surrounded by people. He shouldn't get involved. This catering gig paid triple his usual rate, and he needed every dollar to cover Lily's medical bills. His 8-year-old daughter's asthma medications weren't getting any cheaper, and as a single dad working 3 jobs, he couldn't afford to lose this one. Yet when he saw the woman Tessa Lawson apparently flinch almost imperceptibly as another group whispered while looking in her direction, something in Zane snapped. "Gentlemen," he said, approaching the group with professional smoothness as he offered champagne. "May I refresh your drinks?" The men barely glanced his way, taking new glasses. The tallest one continued, "I heard she coded that first app herself in some community college computer lab. Probably slept with half the venture capitalists to get funding." Zane's grip tightened on his tray. "Excuse me, sir, but I couldn't help overhearing your conversation." The men turned, clearly annoyed at being addressed by the help. "I believe you're discussing Tessa Lawson," Zane continued calmly. "The woman who created Safe Space, the app that's helped nearly 1 million women escape domestic violence." The group exchanged glances, momentarily silenced. "The same woman who donated $50 million to build 3 children's hospitals last year." Zane's voice remained pleasant but firm. "From where I stand, that seems more impressive than being born into the right family." The air around them chilled as the men stared at him with undisguised contempt. "You should know your place," the tall one said quietly. "You're hired to serve drinks, not opinions." Zane nodded, professional mask firmly in place. "You're right, I apologize. Though if I may suggest, gentlemen, perhaps the true measure of class isn't in one's lineage but in how one treats others." With that, he turned and walked away, heart pounding. He'd almost certainly cost himself this job, and possibly future work with this catering company. But he couldn't regret it, not when he thought of Lily and the values he was trying to instill in her. What Zane didn't notice was that Tessa Lawson had been within earshot for the latter part of the exchange, her green eyes wide with surprise as she watched the server, who just defended her to some of New York's most powerful men. Tessa Lawson had mastered the art of appearing composed while internally falling apart. As she sipped her champagne and pretended to admire a nearby floral arrangement, she fought the urge to flee the gala. After 5 years of running her tech company and 3 years on the Forbes Billionaire list, she thought the whispers would stop. They'd just gotten more creative. She discreetly checked her watch. Another hour before she could reasonably leave without offending the charity organizers. The funds raised tonight would support arts programs in underfunded schools, a cause she deeply believed in, having benefited from similar programs herself. That's why she donated $2 million and agreed to attend, despite knowing how these events always went. Tessa was contemplating a strategic trip to the ladies' room when she overheard the server defending her to the group of men she'd been avoiding all evening. His words were like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning, and she found herself moving closer without conscious thought. The server was tall with broad shoulders that his rented tuxedo couldn't quite disguise as off the rack. His dark hair was slightly too long for the uptight crowd, and when he turned away from the men, his expression revealed a flicker of worry before returning to professional neutrality. Before she could stop herself, Tessa stepped into his path. "Excuse me." His eyes, a warm brown that reminded her of amber, widened slightly in recognition. "Madam, can I get you something? You just got yourself fired, didn't you?" she asked quietly. A rueful smile crossed his face. "Probably." "Worth it, though?" "Why would you do that? You don't know me," he shrugged, the gesture surprisingly elegant. "My daughter is 8. I'm trying to teach her to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Hard to do that if I don't live by the same rule." Something warm unfurled in Tessa's chest. "You have a daughter, Lily. She's the best thing in my life." His expression softened, and Tessa found herself drawn to the genuine emotion there. In her world of calculated business moves and strategic relationships, such transparency was rare. "I'm Tessa," she said, offering her hand. "Zane Johnson." His grip was firm but gentle. "And I know who you are, Miss Lawson. My daughter uses your educational coding app. She wants to build games someday." Before Tessa could respond, a sharp voice cut through their conversation. "Johnson. What do you think you're doing?" A red-faced man in catering attire was approaching rapidly. Zane straightened, resignation clear on his face. "Chatting with a guest, Mr. Reinhardt. You're paid to serve, not socialize. And I've had complaints about you offering unsolicited commentary to guests. Pack up your things, you're done here." Tessa stepped forward. "Actually, Mr. Reinhardt, is it? Mr. Johnson was assisting me with a question about tonight's menu for dietary restrictions. I'd appreciate if he could continue helping me this evening." The catering manager looked between them, clearly torn between appeasing a major donor and disciplining his employee. "Of course, Miss Lawson. Johnson, stick to serving. No more conversations." He retreated with a final warning glare at Zane. "You didn't have to do that," Zane said quietly. "You didn't have to defend me either. We're even." Tessa glanced around at the watching eyes. "Though I may have just made things worse for you. I've handled tougher situations." Something in his tone made Tessa believe him. There was a steadiness to Zane Johnson that intrigued her, a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with wealth or status. "What time does your shift end?" she found herself asking. Surprise flickered across his face. "Midnight." "Would you allow me to thank you properly? Perhaps coffee after your shift?" Zane hesitated. "I appreciate the offer, but I need to get home to Lily. My neighbor watches her when I work nights, but I try not to impose too late." "Of course," Tessa said, oddly disappointed but respecting his priorities. "Another time, perhaps. Perhaps." His smile seemed genuine. "I should get back to work before Mr. Reinhardt finds another reason to fire me." Tessa watched him return to circulating with his tray, noticing how he moved with purpose through the crowd. For the first time that evening, she felt genuinely seen, not as Tessa Lawson, tech billionaire, but simply as a person worthy of defense. She made a mental note to contact the catering company tomorrow. Whether Zane Johnson wanted her help or not, she would ensure his act of kindness didn't cost him his job. Zane arrived home just after midnight, quietly paying his elderly neighbor Mrs. Fernandez before checking on Lily. His daughter was fast asleep, her dark curls splayed across the pillow, breathing even and untroubled for once. He brushed a gentle kiss across her forehead before retreating to the kitchen of their modest 2-bedroom apartment. As he loosened his bow tie and rolled up his sleeves, he reflected on the evening. The encounter with Tessa Lawson seemed surreal now. In the harsh fluorescent light of his kitchen, with its chipped countertops and second-hand appliances, the glittering world of the Met Gala felt like a dream. His phone buzzed with a text from his catering supervisor. "Don't bother coming in tomorrow, or ever. Your services are no longer required." Zane sighed, running a hand through his hair. That was one less income stream, and a lucrative one at that. He still had his day job as a construction foreman and weekend shifts at the community center teaching kids boxing classes, but losing the catering work would hurt. He was calculating how to adjust their budget when a knock at the door startled him. Checking the peephole, he was shocked to see Tessa Lawson standing in the hallway of his not-so-great Bronx apartment building. He opened the door, suddenly conscious of his untucked shirt and the general shabbiness of his surroundings. "Miss Lawson. How did you? Your catering company is very forthcoming with employee information when presented with the right incentives," she said, looking slightly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry for showing up like this. I should have called first. It's fine, just unexpected. Zane stepped back. Would you like to come in? It's not exactly what you're used to. Please don't apologize for your home, she said, stepping inside and immediately making his small living room seem more cramped and more alive simultaneously. She'd changed from her gown into dark jeans and a simple cashmere sweater that probably cost more than his monthly rent. I heard you were fired, she said directly. That's my fault, and I'd like to make it right. Zane shook his head. You didn't ask me to say anything to those men. That was my choice. A choice you made defending me. She held up a hand when he started to protest. I've already spoken with the owner of the catering company. You'll be reinstated if you want, though personally, I wouldn't work for people who fire employees for basic human decency. I appreciate that, but alternatively, she continued, my foundation is looking for someone to coordinate our community outreach programs. The position pays considerably more than catering, with regular hours that would work better for a single parent. Zane studied her, trying to understand her motives. Why are you doing this? Tessa seemed taken aback by the directness of his question. Because you stood up for me when you had everything to lose and nothing to gain. That kind of integrity is rare, especially in my world. Before Zane could respond, a small voice came from the hallway. Dad, who are you talking to? Lily stood in the doorway in her galaxy print pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her long dark hair was tangled and she clutched her stuffed otter under one arm. Hey, sweetheart, this is Miss Lawson. She came to talk to me about work. Go back to bed, okay? Lily's eyes widened as she looked at their visitor. Are you the Tessa Lawson, the one who made Coder Kids? Tessa smiled, her entire demeanor softening. I am, you must be Lily. Your dad told me you're learning to code. I made a game where otters collect seashells, Lily said, suddenly wide awake. Dad, can I show her? Zane glanced at his watch. Lil, it's after midnight. Miss Lawson needs to go home and you need to sleep. Actually, Tessa said, I'd love to see your game, Lily. But your dad's right about the time. Maybe another day. Lily bounced on her toes. Promise, promise. Tessa's smile was genuine. Now listen to your dad about bedtime. After Zane tucked Lily back in with a reminder about school tomorrow, he returned to find Tessa examining the family photos on his bookshelf. She looks like you, Tessa observed. Same eyes. Acts like her mother, though stubborn as they come. Zane smiled fondly. Sorry about that interruption. Don't be, she's wonderful. Tessa turned to face him. About the job offer, I can't accept charity, Miss Lawson. It's not charity. It's a legitimate position that needs filling, and after tonight, I know you're qualified. She handed him a business card. Think about it. For Lily's sake, if not your own. Their fingers brushed as he took the card, and Zane was surprised by the jolt of awareness that passed between them. Tessa seemed to feel it too, her eyes widening slightly before she took a step back. I should go, she said. It's late, and you have a daughter to get to school tomorrow. At the door, she turned back. Thank you again, Zane. Not many people stand up for others without expecting something in return. After she left, Zane stood for a long moment, turning her business card over in his hands. The embossed letters caught the light. Tessa Lawson, CEO, Lawson Technologies. Below it, she'd scribbled a personal number. Despite his reservations, he found himself saving the number in his phone before going to bed. 3 days later, Zane sat across from Tessa in her office, high above Manhattan in the Lawson Technologies headquarters. The view was spectacular, but not nearly as impressive as the woman herself, dressed in a simple but obviously expensive charcoal pantsuit, her hair in a sleek chignon. The position would involve coordinating between our foundation and the communities we serve, she explained. Making sure our resources actually reach the people who need them, and that we're addressing real needs rather than what we think people need. And you think I'm qualified for this because you understand both worlds, Tessa said simply. You know what it's like to struggle and you're not intimidated by wealth or status. Plus, you clearly care about doing the right thing even at personal cost. Zane studied her. Can I be honest, please? I'm having trouble understanding why the CEO is personally handling this hire. Don't you have people for that? Tessa laughed, the sound genuine and unguarded. I do. But I've learned to trust my instincts about people, and my instincts say you're exactly who we need. What she didn't say was how thoughts of him had occupied her mind since the gala, how his quiet confidence and uncompromising principles had impressed her in a way no amount of wealth or power ever had. The hours would be 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, she continued. The salary is $85,000 annually, with full benefits including excellent health insurance. Zane's breath caught. That was more than double what he currently made combining all 3 jobs, and the health insurance alone would be life-changing for Lily's asthma care. I don't have a college degree, he admitted. I started classes, but when Angela, Lily's mom, left when Lily was 2, I had to drop out to work full-time. Experience matters more than degrees. You've managed construction crews, worked with the public, and taught children. That's a more valuable education than many people get from 4 years of college. When Zane still hesitated, Tessa leaned forward. Take the weekend to think about it. Talk to Lily. The position is yours if you want it. As their meeting concluded, Tessa surprised herself by saying, "My driver can take you home." "That's not necessary. I'm used to the subway." "I insist. Consider it research for your potential new role, seeing how the Foundation's transportation services might work." It was a flimsy excuse, and they both knew it. But Zane accepted with a small smile that made Tessa's heart beat faster than it had any right to. In the privacy of her car, with the partition closed between them and her driver, the atmosphere shifted. The professional distance they'd maintained in her office dissolved in the intimate space. "How's Lily?" Tessa asked, genuinely interested. "Excited about the science fair next month. She's building a model ecosystem and coding a program to track the changes." Pride filled his voice. "She hasn't stopped talking about meeting you, by the way. You've got a fan for life." "I'd still love to see her game sometime," Tessa said, surprised by how much she meant it. "Maybe you could come to dinner." The invitation seemed to surprise Zane as much as it did Tessa. "I mean, if you're not too busy with billionaire things," Tessa laughed. "Billionaire things? You know, buying islands, racing yachts, whatever you people do for fun." His teasing tone made it clear he was joking. "Sadly, my island buying budget is rather depleted this quarter," she played along, enjoying the lightness between them. "But dinner sounds lovely. When?" "Tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs. It's Lily's favorite." "Perfect, I'll bring dessert." As the car pulled up to his building, Zane turned to her with sudden seriousness. "This job offer. It's really not because you feel obligated after the gala," Tessa met his gaze directly. "It's because you're exactly the person we need. The fact that I enjoy your company is a separate issue entirely." The admission hung between them, honest and a little vulnerable. Zane nodded slowly. "I'll see you tomorrow night then. 7 o'clock. 7 it is." As the car pulled away, Tessa found herself more excited about a simple dinner with Zane and his daughter than she had been about any social engagement in years. Zane spent Saturday morning deep cleaning the apartment, something Lily found highly suspicious. "Why are you scrubbing the baseboards?" she asked, watching him from the couch where she was supposed to be doing homework. "You never clean like this." "We have a guest coming for dinner and I'd like our home to look nice." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Is it Miss Lawson, the coding lady?" "Yes," Zane admitted, seeing no point in hiding it. "She's coming for dinner." Lily broke into a wide grin. "Is she your girlfriend?" "No," Zane said firmly. "She's a potential employer and a new friend." "You're cleaning the baseboards for a friend." Lily used air quotes, looking far too knowing for an 8-year-old. "You didn't even do that when Principal Matthews came over." "Different kind of friend," Zane muttered, regretting every romantic comedy he'd let Lily watch with Mrs. Fernandez. "Is she pretty?" "I was really sleepy when I saw her." Zane paused in his cleaning. "Yes, she's pretty." "But that's not important." "It is if you want to kiss her," Lily said matter-of-factly. "Homework. Now." Zane pointed to her neglected math workbook, ignoring her giggling. At precisely 7 o'clock, there was a knock at their door. Zane opened it to find Tessa holding a bakery box and looking decidedly un-billionaire-like in jeans, a soft blue sweater, and minimal makeup. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and she wore flat boots instead of the intimidating heels he'd seen her in previously. "Hi," she said, looking almost shy. "I brought tiramisu. I wasn't sure what Lily would like, so I got some cookies too." You didn't need to bring anything, Zane said, taking the box and stepping aside to let her in. I wanted to. She stopped short at the sight of Lily, who stood in the middle of the living room wearing her best dress, a slightly too small purple number with sequins that had been a birthday gift from Mrs. Fernandez. Miss Lawson, I set the table and made place cards, Lily announced proudly. Please call me Tessa, she replied, crouching down to Lily's level. And thank you for the place cards, that's very thoughtful. Dinner was surprisingly comfortable. Lily dominated the conversation, asking Tessa dozens of questions about coding her company and whether she had any pets, just a very lazy cat named Algorithm who sleeps on my keyboard. By the time they were eating tiramisu, Zane was relieved to see Tessa genuinely enjoying herself, laughing at Lily's jokes and listening intently to her 8-year-old logic. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Tessa her otter shell collecting game, and Zane watched with a strange tightness in his chest as the Billionaire CEO sat cross-legged on the floor with his daughter, offering genuine praise and gentle suggestions for improvements. When Lily finally went to bed after extracting a promise from Tessa to come back soon, Zane and Tessa sat on the small balcony with glasses of wine. Thank you for tonight, Tessa said, looking out at the limited view of the city. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed a dinner party so much. Even though it wasn't catered by a celebrity chef, Zane teased, especially because of that. She turned to face him. Your spaghetti puts those overpriced restaurants to shame. High praise from someone who could literally buy a restaurant if she wanted. Tessa laughed softly. Money buys access, not enjoyment. Tonight was real. Lily adores you, Zane said. She's already planning your next visit. I'd like that. Tessa met his eyes. I'd like that very much. The air between them shifted, charged with unspoken possibility. Zane found himself leaning slightly closer, drawn to her in a way he hadn't been drawn to anyone since before Lily was born. About the job, he said, breaking the moment. I'd like to accept. Tessa's smile was brilliant. That's wonderful. You start Monday. Monday works. He hesitated, then added, I want to be clear about something, though. My accepting the job and whatever this is between us, they're separate things. Absolutely, Tessa agreed quickly. In fact, if you'd be more comfortable, the foundation's director can be your direct supervisor. I wouldn't want anyone including you thinking there's any impropriety. I appreciate that, Zane took a breath. Because I'd like to ask you to dinner, just the two of us, if you're interested. Tessa's expression softened. I'd like that very much. When she left that night, their goodbye was a simple kiss on the cheek, but the promise of something more hung in the air between them. The following weeks brought significant changes to Zane and Lily's lives. His new position at the Lawson Foundation proved more rewarding than he'd anticipated, connecting underserved communities with resources they desperately needed. The regular hours meant he could be home for dinner with Lily every night, help with homework, and even coach her soccer team on weekends. His relationship with Tessa evolved cautiously but steadily. They were careful to keep their professional and personal lives separate, but evenings and weekends often found Tessa at their apartment for movie nights with Lily, or Zane and Tessa enjoying quiet dinners after Lily went to bed. Their first real date without Lily was to a hole-in-the-wall jazz club Zane had discovered years ago. Tessa had arrived in a cab rather than her usual town car, dressed simply but elegantly in a way that wouldn't draw attention. No one will recognize me here, she'd said with evident relief when he'd commented on her arrival. That's part of the appeal. As they listened to the music, shoulders touching in the dimly lit space, Zane realized how lonely Tessa's life had been before. She spoke of growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, of the scholarship that had changed her life, and of building her company from nothing. People think the money makes everything easier, she confided, and it does solve certain problems, but it creates others. People either want something from you or resent you. Finding genuine connections becomes nearly impossible. Is that why you haven't married? Zane asked, immediately regretting the personal question. Sorry, that's none of my business. It's a fair question. Tessa twirled her wine glass thoughtfully. I came close once, about 4 years ago. Richard was from a good family, as they say seemed to understand the pressures of my position. 6 months before the wedding, I discovered he was funneling company information to competitors and had a separate prenup drafted that my lawyers hadn't seen. Zane's expression darkened. What happened to him? Nothing dramatic. I broke off the engagement, had my legal team handle the NDA violations, and moved on. She shrugged, but Zane could see the hurt beneath her composed exterior. It taught me to be more careful. What about you? You've never mentioned Lily's mother. Angela wasn't ready for parenthood, Zane said simply. We were young 22 when Lily was born. She stuck it out for 2 years, then decided family life wasn't for her. Last I heard, she was in California, working as a surf instructor. Does Lily see her? Birthday and Christmas calls, usually. A few visits when she's on this coast. Zane's tone was matter-of-fact, without bitterness. I've never kept Angela from Lily, but I've also never pretended the situation is ideal. You're an extraordinary father, Tessa said softly, her hand finding his on the table. Lily is lucky to have you. When he drove her home that night, their first real kiss in the car outside her building left them both breathless and wondering how they'd managed to wait so long. 3 months into their relationship, the annual Children's Hospital benefit gala arrived, the same event where they'd first met, though this time Zane attended as Tessa's date rather than serving drinks. Nervous? Tessa asked as they rode in her car to the venue. A little, Zane admitted, adjusting his bow tie. The tuxedo he wore was custom-made, a gift from Tessa that he'd initially resisted until she pointed out that as her date to multiple functions, it was a practical investment. Just remember, you belong there every bit as much as anyone else, she said, squeezing his hand. More than most, actually. The evening started well enough. Tessa introduced Zane to various business associates and philanthropists, many of whom were genuinely interested in the foundation's community work. But as the night progressed, Zane couldn't help noticing the speculative glances and whispered comments. He was at the bar getting drinks when he overheard a familiar voice, one of the same men he'd confronted the year before. Clever career move on his part, the man was saying to his companion. From serving drinks to serving the boss in other ways. Wonder how long before she realizes he's just after her money. Zane stiffened but remained silent, collecting the drinks and walking away. Throughout the evening, similar comments reached his ears, speculation about his motives, his background, whether he was using Lily to secure Tessa's affections. By the time they left, his jaw was tight with suppressed anger. In the car, Tessa immediately sensed his mood. What happened? Nothing I didn't expect. He stared out the window at the passing city lights, just reminded that I don't belong in your world. That's not true, Tessa said firmly. Those people, their opinions don't matter, don't they? They're your peers, your social circle. They're business associates and society acquaintances, not friends, not people whose judgment I value. She turned his face toward hers. The only opinions that matter to me are yours and Lily's. And what happens when Lily starts getting questions at school about her dad dating a billionaire? When the press starts digging into my background? I don't have skeletons in my closet, Tessa, but I don't have achievements that match yours either. Is that what you think I care about? Achievements, matching social status, hurt flashed in her eyes. I thought you knew me better than that. I do, Zane sighed, running a hand through his hair. I'm sorry, it's just, tonight was a reminder of how different our worlds are. Different doesn't mean incompatible. Tessa's voice softened. Unless you think it does, the vulnerability in her question cut through Zane's frustration. He took her hand, bringing it to his lips. No, different just means we have more to learn from each other. He smiled faintly. Though I could do without the society galas for a while. Deal, Tessa agreed readily. Next date you choose. The less expensive, the better. Their next date ended up being a family day at Kenai Island with Lily, eating hot dogs and riding the cyclone until they were dizzy. Watching Tessa laugh unreservedly as she and Lily competed at the ring toss, hair windblown and cheeks flushed, Zane realized he was hopelessly in love with her. That night, after Lily was asleep, he told her so in his quiet living room. The joy that lit Tessa's face as she returned the words confirmed what he'd begun to suspect, that this remarkable woman, who could have anyone, had somehow chosen him. "I love your strength, your heart, your integrity," she whispered against his lips. "I love how you are with Lily, and how you see me, the real me, not the CEO or the billionaire." 1 year after their first meeting, Zane and Lily moved into Tessa's penthouse. The transition wasn't without challenges. Lily missed their old neighbors, and Zane had to adjust to doormen and housekeepers, but they made it work, blending their lives thoughtfully and with constant communication. Tessa proposed on a random Tuesday evening while they were making dinner together, Lily setting the table nearby. "I think we should get married," she said casually, chopping vegetables. "If you want to, that is." Zane nearly dropped the pasta pot. "Is that a proposal?" "Yes," Tessa said, setting down her knife and turning to face him. "A terrible one, apparently. I had a whole plan involving a private dinner and an eloquent speech, but watching you and Lily dancing around the kitchen just now, I couldn't wait." Lily looked up from the silverware she was arranging. "Are you guys getting married? Can I be the flower girl if your dad says yes?" Tessa replied, eyes never leaving Zane's face. Zane set down the pot, took 3 steps to Tessa, and lifted her off her feet in an embrace that answered her question more eloquently than words. "Yes," he said when he finally set her down. "Absolutely yes." "Group hug," Lily demanded, throwing herself at both of them. "Does this mean Tessa will be my mom now, if you'd like that?" Tessa said carefully, meeting Zane's eyes over Lily's head. They discussed this, knowing it was ultimately Lily's decision what to call Tessa. "I would," Lily said decisively. "I've always wanted a mom who knows how to code." Their wedding 6 months later was small by society standards, but perfect for them, a beachfront ceremony with just 50 guests, including Mrs. Fernandez and several families from the communities where Zane now worked. Lily stood proudly between them as they exchanged vows, officiating their ring exchange with serious responsibility. The society pages noted the absence of many high-profile guests one might have expected at a billionaire's wedding, but as Tessa had told Zane, "I'm only inviting people who care about our happiness, not our connections." 2 years later, Tessa gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, whom 11-year-old Lily adored with protective older sister intensity. Their family settled into a rhythm that balanced Tessa's corporate responsibilities, Zane's expanded role at the foundation, and their commitment to raising children grounded in the values both parents cherished. On the 5th anniversary of the gala where they'd first met, they returned, this time as co-chairs of the event. As they circulated among guests, Zane spotted the men who had once mocked Tessa and questioned his motives. They nodded respectfully now, their previous disdain replaced by a deference born of Zane and Tessa's joint philanthropic accomplishments. "5 years ago, I was serving drinks and you were standing alone," Zane mused as they shared a quiet moment on the balcony. "Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" "Not in my wildest dreams," Tessa admitted, leaning into his embrace. "But now I can't imagine any other path, even with the 3 a.m. feedings and Lily's preteen drama, especially with those." Tessa smiled up at him. "You know, for someone who owns multiple homes, the only place that's ever felt like home is wherever you and the kids are." Zane kissed her tenderly. "For a poor guy who once crashed a gala, I got incredibly lucky." "We both did," Tessa corrected, "and I have those small-minded men to thank. If they hadn't been so cruel, you might never have defended me." "I would have found another reason to talk to you," Zane assured her. "Some things are just meant to be." As they returned to the gala, hand in hand, the contrast with that first night couldn't have been more striking. Then they had been strangers from different worlds now. They were partners in every sense, their lives and hearts inextricably intertwined, and both agreed it was the best investment either had ever made.